Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Andrew, or Andy, whichever you prefer, and today we will be looking at the second zombies map of Treyarch zombies in general. This will be Verrückt, and we're going to be looking at its gameplay experience. So just before we get started, I'm going to go by the system I went with on the Nocturne Totem video, which we'll be looking at innovation, creativity, visuals, difficulty, cons, and a final score out of 10. Preferably keeping its whole numbers, only using 0.5s and whatnot if we have to. If you guys want to know more information about that, if you haven't seen the first video, I strongly recommend you watch the first 2 minutes of it just to get a grasp, even if you don't want to see the entire Nocturne Totem video. That's fine. Either way, let's go right into it. So we'll be doing this in the same order as yesterday, starting with innovation. So what new ideas did Verrückt bring to the table? Well, we have a few things. We have stuff like power, a transporting mystery box, perks, traps, things like that. And honestly, I think that really works a lot. Because in favor of Verrückt, perks is like such a big necessity in maps. Ever since Verrückt came out, we've had perks in every single map except Bus Depot, I believe. But Bus Depot is just supposed to be discount Nocturne Totem, so I guess it makes sense. Either way though, Verrückt was a huge inspiration for future maps, and I think in its entirety, its innovation has peaked. It's the second map of Call of Duty Zombies, and its ideas were fresh, and on top of that, awesome. Alright, now we're looking at creativity. So just telling you guys here, creativity and innovation are intertwined pretty well. They're not exactly the same thing, but they're very similar. They sit in the same boat in that regard. So just taking a look at the creativity of the ideas, more or less, that, was innovated upon. Stuff like perks, having to save up a pretty decent amount of points to purchase said perks to help you survive, I think is very creative on Treyarch's behalf. Not to mention the entire concept of the map, being in an insane asylum is really cool, I must say. Same thing with traps, that don't they do like infinite damage? I think the traps was very creative as well. I would say all in all, Verrückt gave us a lot of creativity with the innovation that it brought on the table, and yeah, Verrückt did excellent in that regard. On to our next concept. Alright, now we're going to be looking at the visuals of Verrückt, and I think Verrückt did it very well here. On the main focus of the map, which is inside the insane asylum, it's this dim, bloody mess where you can see loose limbs and even interact with some things that really correspond with the map well, despite how horrific these can be. These sounds consist of people screaming from like drills, a baby like crying, I believe. It's a pretty horrifying map, but that's probably one of my favorite things about it. For things that are more outside the map, although it's kind of a sunny day, it looks like you're surrounded by this burning forest, and all the smoke is making the light go a little bit dimmer, I guess. So it kind of gives this really abandoned, isolated type of feeling, similar to Nocturne Totem, but not in the exact same way. Nocturne Totem went for more of an abandoned look, while Verrückt, even though it did a little bit of an abandoned type of theme, it has more of a emphasis on interpretation on how horrific events took place before you played that map. So I think the visuals of Verrückt was quite amazing. Okay, now we're going to be looking at the difficulty of Verrückt. Now I'm just going to say here, it doesn't take a super genius to know that Verrückt is one of the hardest maps in Call of Duty Zombies history. It's in that category with Nocturne Totem and some other maps, but we'll get to those other maps as we progress in the series. Verrückt is very thin. There's no room for air, physically and, figuratively. So, you gotta count on your skills a little bit in that map. Now, cool, you have perks, that'll make it easier. Well, I mean, you still gotta turn on the power first, and you won't be doing that until round 4, maybe 5. 3 if you're incredibly lucky. But you're still powerless with perks the first 4-ish, 5-ish rounds. And the zombies start jogging at you at round like 2 and beyond. And with such a cramped space, you know, you gotta be very accurate, you gotta play it just right. We'll get more on some problems with this in the next thing, which will be cons. So let's go there right now. Alright, now we'll be looking at the cons of Verrückt. So there's a little bit to go through here, so I'll just take as much time as I need and explain it to you. Don't worry, this won't be 10 minutes long. So to take a look at the first thing is a spawn. If you're playing co-op, then one or more players will spawn on each side. Now these sides are separated by a door that can only be opened if the power is turned on. So, the con with this, if one or two of the players on one side go down, there's no hope to revive them unless you turn on the power in that very moment and you rush there. Now, it's a small map, so it might be doable. And you know what? If you go down on round 3, it means you need to practice a little bit, obviously. But either way. As for difficulty, the map is pretty difficult majority of the time. Rounds 2 to 5 might be a bit intermediate. 1 will obviously be easy, as it's known for. I would say rounds 6 to 9 would be pretty easy, for the fact that you'll probably have enough for Jug at that point, assuming that you didn't down a billion times or something. So, the off-putting issue is kind of not completely eliminated here, but mostly. But however, going into the double digits, you're gonna have to full map train. That's the only way you can really make it past that. That's the problem. At the time of when this map came out, training wasn't very well known. Therefore, getting high rounds on this map wasn't very doable. Now, I love Verrückt for everything it brought, but I can definitely understand why people don't like it. Its difficulty isn't easy. It's never gonna be easy in that map. Round 1, sure. Round 2, maybe. Anything beyond that, it's gonna be at least intermediate. So, I will say here, though, the difficulty issue is not as big as it was in Nocturne Tone, but that doesn't mean it's off the face of the earth completely. Okay, now it's time to give my final score on Verrückt. I think it deserves an 8 out of 10. It had very few flaws, but it was executed pretty well. There was a lot of points, you know, generated from innovation, its creativity, and its visuals. All those 3 helped it a lot. The difficulty weighed it down a little bit, but not as much as it weighed down in Nocturne Tone, because the difficulty issue wasn't completely negated, but it was definitely fixed somewhat, and a step in the right direction is better than no step at all, even if it's not a full mile travel yet. So, overall, I would say Verrückt was a great second map. It's the direction that the series needed to go in order to be successful, and Verrückt, wonderful job. So, if you guys enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Until Shino Numa!